Hello, everybody. Oh, do I have a treat for you today? I get to introduce you to a good friend of mine who Ray and I are going to celebrate. Calling it the Guthrie Celebration Hour. And and there's a lot here we're going to try to squeeze in. But first, you might not know my good friend and colleague Ray Ballard, who's on here with me, and we are your hosts today as we interview our friend. And first, let me introduce you to our friend Guthrie Sayen here, and what's really special is that the three of us have a lot in common. We have three significant things in common, which we're going to get to kind of explore and share with you today through the magnificence of Guthrie. For those of you who are internal family systems people, Guthrie and I have been exploring this edge together and edges as colleagues and friends and supporting each other. And he is a significant player in the IFS world and does a lot of trainings, which we'll tell you about to support our IFS lives, but it doesn't stop there. Guthrie's also he's in a non-dual group with us called Perfectly Okay, which is I'm not going to do more about it. So then we got three things: that Perfectly Okay, and then we did something else called the Luminous Institute together, which hopefully you'll be able to feel in Guthrie today. So as Guthrie begins speaking, as he shares today, I want to invite see if you can tune in to the two levels. You'll hear the words that are spoken, but Guthrie's gift for me is what's beneath the words. So you can feel how the energy, the connectedness, the different flavors of that changes as we explore today. And then later on we'll tell you about his offerings. He's got a lot of offerings that include all three of these areas. And so I'm excited to be able to share that with you. Without further ado, our friend Guthrie.
How you like that, Guthrie? He's he's good at that, isn't he?
Yeah. I heard it said once that an introduction is really good if it makes you blush. And this introduction actually just raised my vibration a little and then opened my heart. So thank you for that.
What's the exciting edge of the latest expression of Guthrie? And then we'll just kind of open the different envelopes together.
I think what's been most exciting to me is helping practitioners, by which I mean coaches, therapists, spiritual directors, anyone who works one on one in a healing profession, is to help them connect to the field. Because when they connect to the field, everything changes. They they get grounded, they become embodied, and then they have this context, this larger perspective that most of them have never had before. And when you have that perspective, you can hold anything. You can hold what's arising in your own system, and you can hold what's arising in your client system if you're working one on one with someone.
Mhm.
And if you're working with a group, you can hold whatever is arising in the group. Um, so I created what I call the four building blocks of presence. And I can quickly take us all through it. The first building block is to ground. So just adjusting your posture so that you're not slumping, so that you're alert, and feeling your feet flat on the floor. And then for me, what's really key is feeling my full weight releasing onto my seat, because that's a third contact point. And just dropping down into the lower dantian, which is the also known as the belly center or the movement center. And when we drop into the belly center, if we really release, feeling our weight landing on our buttocks, things get really still. And then bringing your attention to core. That's feeling your torso, your trunk from within. And within the core, there's another core, the core of the core. And that's the energy channel that runs from the root chakra to the crown chakra. In fact, that channel extends all the way down into the center of the earth and up into the heavens. And when we connect to that, we have confidence. So when we ground, we've got stability and a sense of safety. And when we find core, we begin to find confidence. And then from here, we can let our awareness open up and out in all directions. And we just let our awareness mingle with the field of awake awareness. And it's here in this place of spaciousness and calm and clarity that we can then notice the body again and have that simultaneous awareness of field and embodiment. And when we're embodied with field awareness, we're available to focus. We're available to connect from an agendaless place. And when a practitioner can hold that, my shorthand for this is ground, field, heart. So if you've got ground, field, and heart, you're available to offer anyone, whether it's a client or a friend or a colleague, or even someone who's behaving in a way that's unskillful, you're available to offer them unconditional positive regard. And when you can do that, you can change the energy of a situation. Because let's say you're with someone who's behaving unskillfully, they're not getting any shame, they're not getting any blame, they're getting presence. And that can shift the dynamic. So if you practice this, you can do it in seconds. I know a lot of people who can get to field very quickly, but they're not always grounded. So that's why I start with ground. And I emphasize it by also going to core. But if you need to do it fast, just ground, field, and then be ready to come from your heart to connect.
That's game changing.
So the cool thing, when I sit with my friends Sid and Ray, so now that we've done this, the three of us together, I can just let the filters drop. It's like the personality, which has been built up through hurt and injury over decades can really relax and we can be naked with each other. Transparent.
Ray, can I tag you? Because where Guthrie just took me, I'm having difficulty finding words.
think I'm in the same place, but when I have trouble finding words, I just ask what's happening for me right now. And yeah, there's a lot of peace from that exercise. And I love the piece of the ground in the field, but also the heart connection. Really, really important. It kind of brings me into the present moment. And how does this field of peace and love want to interact and want to connect in this moment? And I think there's a reason that you put that at the third as the third component, because it really brings it into the present moment and the activity, the compassionate action that you're trying to help bring out in the world. At least that's what I'm imagining. Does that feel right to you?
Absolutely. It's right on the spot on. Actually, I thought of something that our friends who are listening might be interested in. And I learned this terminology from a meditation master by the name of Chuladasa. And his great insight, one of his great insights is amazingly simple. So, subjectively speaking, all we have is conscious experience. But what he does that no one else I know of does, he says conscious experience actually has two channels, that there's two ways of knowing. And one he calls peripheral awareness, everything that I'm aware of. And the other is attention, focus. So there's a number of ways to think about that. One way I think about it is I think of peripheral awareness as this enormous circle that it contains everything in my conscious experience, from a distant siren to whether my bladder says get up or not get up, or whatever it is, anything in the environment, external or internal. That's that's all in our field of conscious experience. And then attention, which we can use consciously, is like a circle within that circle. It's a tiny circle within this big circle, and we can move it around like a spotlight. And for most of it, it moves around spontaneously. But we can learn to use it more consciously. And the way we strengthen our overall power of consciousness is actually to do both simultaneously. To learn how to focus attention on an object. And that it could be a meditation object like the breath at the nose or a mantra, without losing peripheral awareness. So imagine you're on the cushion. You have your intention is to focus on the sensations of the breath at the nose without losing ambient sound, without losing somatic sensations, but also noticing mental objects as they arise. So there are these two ways of knowing, attention and awareness. And awareness has two main channels, extrospective awareness and introspective awareness. So most of us, most of the time, if you ask us what we're aware of in the background, as opposed to what we're putting our attention on, we will list sensory objects of awareness, things we're hearing or seeing, smelling, tasting, or feeling, somatic sensations, for example. But what Chuladasa's program trains you to do, well, first to have attention with extrospective peripheral awareness, but then to gradually develop, and this is what's key, developing introspective peripheral awareness so that you can hold your attention on an object like the breath or a mantra while also noticing thoughts arising and passing. And if you see them ahead of time, they won't interrupt your attention. And so many of us are practitioners, we're coaches, therapists, etc. We want to ultimately be able to track the mental objects too, so that they don't take us out of full presence. But it's also something that we can do off the cushion. And the more we can do that, the more conscious power we have. And the more conscious power we have, the more skillful we can be. So I'm sure many people, if they're still listening, I'm basically describing mindfulness.
Mhm.
And one of the ways that Chuladasa describes mindfulness, so you're getting all the stuff I'm thinking about these days. It's finding that optimal balance between attention and peripheral awareness, between what you're focusing on and the context, the big picture. Because most of the time, and we can switch over to IFS and parse language, most of the time we're living inside a part. In other words, our attention has collapsed into the perspective of my achieving part, my perfectionist, my people pleaser. And what IFS helps us do, and what I'm also describing for you, it helps us come outside of that part. We're no longer identified, we come outside of that part. And then we can hold it with awareness. And another way of describing awareness in IFS terms is self with a capital S. And one of the chief qualities of self is compassion. So I can disidentify with my perfectionist and hold my perfectionist with compassion. So I have more context. And then I can direct my attention without having it hijacked by one of my parts. Because our parts are always hijacking attention. And when we do that, we lose awareness, we lose context, we lose perspective, and we behave unskillfully.
Mhm.
We both got something. Go, Sid. I went last time.
Okay, maybe we can get both our questions because we can then Guthrie can see where to go with this. Because I'm kind of, as you speak of this awareness, I mean, where that becomes curious for me is one thing the three of us have in common is exploring these different channels, flavors, constitutions of awareness. And I'm wondering like how that plays for you, the sense of kind of gentle, tender, feminine presence versus masculine clarity versus spaciousness, how that plays as you're facilitating, as you're training people, or that's my question. But let's see what raises, and then Guthrie can then we can get Guthrie can go jam again for us.
Guthrie, I am just dying to share with you how you just changed my world a bit. And what happened? Because there's, of course, there's the awareness and attention, which is beautiful. But you led with the exercise that brought me into my heart. And I recognize when I am blended with a part, my attention, like you said, the parts hijack attention. And it's like, okay, I'm coming from up here. Where do I want to put my attention to achieve what I think should happen? But there's also an attention that can be guided by the heart. Where does compassion want to place my attention right now? Can I allow that to come from my heart? And even more, I mean, they're the same thing, but kind of like a heartfulness that can guide, okay, what is what is really directing my attention at that moment? Is it self, or is it a part or something that I'm blended with? So just thinking about the very phenomenon of attention, and that can be a heart guided sort of thing. I can place my attention on my breath with my mind, but I can also place my attention on my breath with my heart. And I can say, okay, from my heart, what do I want to be paying attention right now? And in my heart sees Guthrie's smile and is really connected with it, rather than what's the thought. And I can really bring my heart to my thoughts as well and bring it there in a compassionate way. But it's like really coming at the world from this place that you rooted me at the beginning of this call. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, Ray. Let me respond to that and then come back to what I think Sid was pointing to. So, what I invite people who are sitting with us to notice now is that Ray, Sid, and I each have a unique constitution. And so when I'm relating to Ray, I relate one way, and when I'm relating to Sid, I relate in a slightly different way. So, Ray, I'm not actually surprised by what you said because our hearts naturally connect. I mean, when I'm in your presence, I can feel your heart radiating.
Likewise.
It's like the Christ energy.
Mm.
When I'm with Sid, it's more like the Buddha energy. I can feel it. It's more from the head center, and I don't mean thinking. Sid and I like to relax in the field and then let ideas begin to just like fly around and mate with each other. But I can do the same with Ray, just as I can connect to Sid's heart, which is happening right now. I can feel the heart connection with Sid too. But our our systems find their own. So the three of us are creating an intersubjective space together. But then when I focus on Ray, I create an intersubjective entity with him that's a little different than when I focus on Sid and create an intersubjective entity with him. So it's pretty complicated, but it's really fun. Should we say
It's
anything more about all this?
I when you mention that, what comes to mind when you say like complicated, there's also an automaticity to it. I
Yeah,
think perhaps because of your sensitivity, but just like, oh yeah, I can bring my attention to Sid and the system kind of configures to connect with Sid. And then there's a different configuration when I bring attention to you. So just playing with a little bit of what you said.
yeah. And I said complicated because I guess I was referring to how you would put this into language. So I'm glad you flagged that, Ray, because it's not actually complicated. If we find ground, core, and field, it's really easy and fun. But it does take practice, I think. And the three
Hmm.
of us have a lot of practice sitting with other people. So then the three of us come together and we've got all these commonalities. It's really easy. It's like going to the circus together.
I'd like I wanted when you speak of the fun of this, because I love that you're training people in this, Guthrie, as far as the applicability as coaches, as friends, as practitioners, as counselors, to be able to the intimacy of the meeting people in the spectrum of dynamic ways of being, and where it becomes, as you say, automatic. I mean, Ray's been doing this for years, and you have too, where it's like that. But I just want to celebrate that, celebrate the subtlety there in that. And then also, I want to highlight the fun aspect of it. Like when you and I, Guthrie, will get on a Zoom for an hour and we will just play with the different ways of meeting in this awareness. Wow, wow, it's aliveness here. It's this Kundalini spark. It's this bliss, and then going to the bliss of the ocean, the infinite connectedness, and then going to this masculine clarity and playing with all of that. It seems to add this kind of fun dimension to life, and it's not just for the we don't call it the cushion for the session room or for the workshop. The idea of what you're playing in and speaking of, I just love its applicability for widening the spectrum of the joy of life. Back to you, Guthrie.
I love that you use the word intimacy because I think it's what we all crave. And so if I can go back to what I called the four building blocks of presence, but we could also call them the four building blocks of intimacy for coming into relational resonance. When we have ground and core, and then field, which gives us that open spaciousness. But when we first get ground and core, we get safety. And that is the prerequisite of intimacy. So we establish safety. And then when we get field, there's so much space. There's no claustrophobia, which can kill intimacy if I'm worried about what to say next or something. If I've got field, that sense of spaciousness, then the agenda just becomes connecting. It's not, we're not as worried about the mechanics of it. So this allows for intimacy. And I think, well, as two IFS practitioners, you know that we talk about the 5 Ps that the practitioner should embody, which I'll mention for people who are listening, which are presence, which is key, presence, essentially access to self, perspective, holding the big picture, recognizing that we're all divine, patience and persistence, which I think of as fraternal twins. And then the fifth one, really in a way my favorite, it's play. And that's what we want to do when we're being intimate. Rumi said, the soul is here for its own joy. And if you read Rumi, I mean, he's just having, he and Hafiz, another Sufi mystic and poet, a century apart, but they're always having fun. You read them and you laugh, especially Hafiz, actually. Um, and I read a quotation from a Theravada Buddhist master the other day saying, if you're not experiencing joy and interest, there's something to look at, either on the cushion or off the cushion. If you're sitting on the cushion, if some of you are meditators, and it's a chore, it's probably better not to go on the cushion until you can begin to find the joy and the interest.
I- Ray's got a lot going. Ray's got some questions for you, but let me just say this: that uh, I love that, the idea of the joy and interest. It's
Yeah.
like if boredom is here, but don't get rid of it. Like go deeper into it. It's like into this life to find that enjoyment and interest and fascination. And I love that you're pointing us towards that, towards this intrinsic interest, love and fascination.
Yeah.
Ray, where are you directing? Where do you take? What you got for him? What do you got
Well,
for him?
I'm really appreciating that approach of when we do something such as meditation, sitting on the picture, watching the breath, blending, to do these things from a place of joy and interest, curiosity, because it's not something that I believe people are used to hearing. And I'm curious about the impact that that has, that approach. Because typically, as coaches or therapists or practitioners, people might say, okay, oh, okay, this is the thing that I'm supposed to do, and write it down, and like, okay, I'll do this. This is my homework. But that attitude of like, wait, we're doing this because it's joyful, because we're interested in it. And if that doesn't interest you, maybe we can find something else that really interests you. And I imagine that frees up a lot of space for play and growth. And I'm just curious, I can imagine how that impacts the way your clients approach this field of growth.
We all know Dick Schwartz, the founder, the founding developer of the internal family systems model. And he often talks about, the markers of self he looks for in himself to know that he has enough access to serve a client or be in front of a class. For me, I only need to check one thing. Do I have access to play?
Mm,
If I don't have access to play, I need to reset. Even if we're doing deep, sobbing work, we need access to play, to the unexpected, to the spontaneous, to moments of grace. And play also reminds us to be in the flow of the moment, not to hold whatever process we're running rigidly. The biggest complaint I get from people who have gone to, I live so much in the IFS world, who have gone to an IFS therapist, even after they've heard such good things about IFS, is that the therapist didn't understand their system. They were imposing a protocol and they weren't dancing with this unique constitution in front of them. They weren't playing. They were running a predetermined protocol. It's not that the protocol isn't useful, it just needs to be held lightly. Because everybody's system is unique and everybody's system has its own way of healing and awakening. And this is where humility comes in. When we're working with someone, we're a student. We are a foreigner in a land where we do not know the laws, the customs, even the language. And the system will tell us how it wants to heal. And the IFS protocol is just like having some geographic markers. Oh, the big oak is over there. The pond is here. The mountains are behind me. Okay, I know where I am. That's what the steps of the protocol are for. The system will tell us how it wants to unroll, unwind.
Appreciating. So just present moment, really being with the system that is right here in front of you. And you mentioned something early in that comment. When you don't have access to play, you're not able to be that spontaneous. So I've got a two-part question. One is, I guess, is that something, imagine it's something you checked in regularly for, you just learned to sense when, oh, I don't have access to play. And then you mentioned you need a reset at that time. What might one do, or what might you advise a practitioner to do when they realize that, oh, wait, I don't have access to play. I'm kind of tight.
Yeah. I notice it in myself more when I'm not with someone, when I'm sitting with someone, when I'm with a client. Um, One way to do it is to simply just name it. So several years ago, I was working with someone and she was she was in hopelessness. And I realized I had blended with the hopeless part. And I said, we need to pause. I need to reset. I am blended. I named it. I am blended with a hopeless part. And just saying that aloud, I unblended. It was just like acknowledging it. So sometimes when I catch myself blending with a part, I actually begin to laugh. But let me give you, usually when I'm working with a client, I have lots of space, and so the slightest contraction I become aware of. But the other day I was on the phone with my credit card company, and the conversation was getting longer and longer and more frustrating. And I began to feel frustration. My system began to contract and I lost my sense of humor. Get, I didn't express my irritation in an obvious way, but you could hear the tightness in my throat. And in moments like that, if I can recover quickly enough, I say to myself, uh-oh, you're in a fight with reality. And then I start laughing. You're in a fight with reality. Because if I'm frustrated, it's because I expected the conversation to be easier and shorter and faster to resolution than I'm experiencing. But the reality is, this person has a script. They're on some kind of their phone services on like a time delay. So speak on top of each other. That's just reality. And when I recognize that I'm not happy with reality, I realize, as Byron Katie, I heard her once say, when you get in a fight with reality, you lose only 100% of the time. So
Mm.
I had a losing moment the other day, which I'm happy to report to you because now I'm laughing at it even more than I did later that day.
I have a thought and a question, but was there any more there, Ray? We don't want to miss anything from Guthrie as we're doing
Oh,
this.
I mean, I just know that I'm appreciating when you say that, I'm flashing back on, oh, these are all the fights that I had with reality in the last, week or month. It's just like, oh, ding, 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 like a huge bell. So I'm appreciating that, Kathy, just sharing that experience.
Mm.
Another phrase for this I learned from my friend Nick, also in POK, by the way, and he did this meditation teacher training that I'm in now, learning about that stuff I told you about earlier. He calls them prediction errors. So here's a
Mm.
prediction error. I live across the street from a private school that's quite expensive. So you now know the socioeconomic status of the parents who send their kids there. And when the parents are on campus and I'm walking through to access another neighborhood, I see their cars. And I'm aware of how wealthy they are, how educated they are, and that they must know about global warming. That's my prediction. They know something about global warming and they care. That's my prediction. And then I look at the cars. They are the biggest cars that car manufacturers can even imagine. And these are people who have one or two kids. I mean, they're not having three, four, five kids. People don't do that in this class anymore. And a part of me gets irritated. That's a prediction error.
Mm.
I'm predicting people of a certain socioeconomic level with a certain education will behave in a certain way. And guess what? I'm wrong.
Oh, mm. Are we ready, Guthrie, to to go up to the next floor together?
Sure.
Because I had this thought because in our friendship, I've gotten to see a lot of the spectrum of my dynamic friend Guthrie and where his system goes and where it can take people. I'm wondering how you'd be with taking me and Ray and those who are with us to get them experiences of some of these flavors of what we call awareness, awake awareness, that when we speak of meeting people in different ways or even meeting our own system in different ways. If you'd like to turn the channel to a few channels and give us some tastes or wherever you're inspired to go with that curiosity.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we could do a couple of steps and see how it goes. And that might be an opening to talk about these different constitutions, like the three of us learned from Luminous, if that were of interest. Okay. So let's begin with what we've got. I want to remind everyone to find ground. And you've got those three major contact points, both feet. And if you're sitting, the root chakra. So really, let's all really land in our chairs or really land on our 2 feet if we're standing, getting grounded. And then letting your center of gravity really drop. Well, delete the word really. Just let it drop as much as it wants to. This is invitational, it's not competitive. So just dropping down, taking your center of gravity below your navel, if that works for your system right now. And when you bring your attention to the belly center, the lower dantian, it's about 2 inches below the navel and in the center there of your body. And if you rest your awareness there, you'll begin to notice stillness. And as you fall into that stillness, it's like entering a black, velvety spaciousness. Deeply quiet, deeply still. And then allowing your attention come to your heart, to the heart center, and beginning to feel that area in the center of your chest. And imagine a kind of a golden light there that you can radiate outward. It's warm and radiant, and it takes joy in shining forth. It's a joyful, loving radiance. It can encompass everybody and everything. It is inclusive. It is unconditional in its loving attention. And then bringing your awareness, so that's the middle dantian, bringing your awareness to the upper dantian, the head center. But just noticing that when you bring your awareness there, you're not really coming to thinking, you're coming to this place of spacious clarity. And just enjoying that spacious clarity as it expands outward in all directions. Spacious clarity. And noticing that if you let your awareness go up vertically, it's spreading out, but let there be the intention of it going vertically until you come into this kind of crystalline clarity. It's almost as if it's way above you, another realm. There's this crystalline clarity. And there's like this very refined architecture, like a geodesic dome, except all the connections are these very thin golden rods connecting to each other. And notice that you've got this deep, dark stillness from the lower Dantian and this radiant love from the middle Dantian, combined with this crystalline clarity of the upper Dantian. And when you're ready, coming back to attention, connection to connection.
But for me, placing awareness really solidly in that lower Dantian with those three centers of energy and awareness that are here, and even feeling the overlap between those three. How it has that reality, the peace and the groundedness, the love and the clarity.
Yeah,
And what a beautiful place to live from.
I love the way you verbalize that, Ray. One way I think of the lower Dantian is so many people that we meet in the circles we travel in, they're very heart-centered. And what I discovered, I don't know, about a year or so ago, is that that lower Dantian can be like a pillar that supports the heart. So the heart really can be supported, which is important because we want to be able to open our hearts, but also to be able to defend them if necessary. Because we live in a world where there's a lot of unskillful behavior. And I don't want to close my heart, but I also don't want to expose it unnecessarily to hurt. So that lower Dantian acts as a kind of support. It reminds me, oh, I can calibrate according to the situation.
That really raises a question in my mind. I also am curious what Sid has as well.
Mm. Sid is I feel so in this where you guided us Guthrie with these three centers. I kept fishing like, oh, we need to ask Guthrie. I need to find a question, and it's just like mm. And so Sid is really resting in these, and I hope our viewers can feel this, where Guthrie took us, those three places, and then what it's like to run all three of them, to be all three of them, and have the solidity and the safety that you're speaking of, Guthrie, in this kind of lower center, and then the heart, and then this all together. Oh my gosh. There's just thank you.
Yeah. I think in the moment I'm thinking about this is okay, with the lower dantian, we've got the support for the heart. The heart's available to connect. And we have this clarity of perception so that we don't wear ourselves out. We can be elegant, the least effort for the most output, as it were. What I'm trying to say is if we just live from the heart, we can let ourselves we can let ourselves get exhausted by the world. But when we've got the support from below and the clarity from above, then the heart can be really, really skillful.
One of
I have
the,
a
go ahead.
Well, mine was going into, I wanted to I wanted to talk a little about Guthrie's healing, Institute for Healing and Awakening, and some of the spectrum of offerings that he's doing. And what do you have, Ray? Because we only have you for another 9 minutes or 8 minutes. What you got?
Right. I mean, I do love the examples that Guthrie has given in this interview. You've got really good stories, and so the question was about having the support from the heart and the clarity to assist the heart with what you live from, and in the presence of unskillful means. Um, I'm curious what this is like from you living from this place when people might flip, if that ever happens to you, people flipping some unpleasant or unskillful behavior your direction, projections or, yep, like just things that would have in the past kind of gotten you off guard. How does that manifest in your world when we have these three pillars here?
Wow. Maybe the best examples I can use are sometimes in class, um, people can get blended with manager parts. It can be really insistent about trying to understand something, and they're they've become so contracted that they're actually interfering with their own understanding. And that can trigger, I can feel parts in me get triggered. And there's a loss of patience. There's a, I think even underneath that, there's an insecurity that I'm not doing my job. And there's probably other stuff, but the key markers for me is I can begin to feel a contraction in my system. As soon as I feel that contraction, I've trained myself to reground. So I said there were 4 building blocks. Well, here's the Guthrie efficient what you have to do in a few seconds method. I feel my ground. I go to the field, which is easy to meet for me because of my constitution. I have a lot of air. You guys will know what that means. And then I go to my heart. And when I get to my heart, I say, what war is this person fighting? That's from Plato, who said we don't know, something like we don't know what wars each person is fighting. And that helps me to become present for them in a way that is non-judging. Because if I don't recover, I then find myself blending with a part that overcompensates. So in, instead of showing direct impatience, I try to find a way to compliment them, but it's not a genuine compliment, if you know what I mean. It's like I'm covering up that original frustration or impatience or insecurity or whatever it is that got triggered in me.
Really helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you. Beautiful.
It's easy for me to kind of go inside and retrace this, what's happening, which parts of me are getting triggered, because I feel so completely accepted by the two of you. So it feels completely safe to do that. So thank you.
Being our listeners, viewers by now, starting to get a sense of my enjoyment of Guthrie. Hopefully they're getting a taste of this too. And this has been, Guthrie and I have been friends for maybe 3 years as colleagues and exploring together and supporting each other. And so now this is being expressed through you, through the Institute for Healing and Awakening. And if I could just take a minute, because I was on your website and reading through your offerings, and I'd love to just share those. And then I'd love to have you maybe speak a little bit about your joy of sharing these flavors and this, even the name of the Institute for Healing and Awakening, and how this is playing in you. And I was excited in reading the offerings and just the breadth of them and the depth, the horizontal and the vertical that Guthrie was playing all in this. So I got IFS Made Simple, a 2-day practitioner training in December. IFS Made Simple. And then in January, the magic of presence. And this is a free day. Magic of presence. And see, we've gotten to experience some flavors, but there's so much more. We just had such limited time together as far as the expressions, the rainbow of the flavors in Guthrie. But he's offering this for free a day in January 17th. And then for colleagues, for IFS colleagues, he has a consultation group. And then Guthrie's been training a lot of coaches in IFS as an expression. So anyone can step in and learn this. And so he's got 2 offerings called it IFS 1. And this is a foundational based practice on the protocols of IFS. And then he's got IFS 2, which is a presence based approach. And lastly, he offers a comprehensive coach training called Coaching with Spirit, coaching with spirit, to heal and awaken within ourselves so that we as facilitators can help others heal and awaken. Tell us more, Guthrie.
So, all of what we offer are both workshops and trainings. So, in other words, the workshop aspect is they focus on you and how you can heal and awaken, but they also train you to do that with other people. So, my calling, which I spent the summer of 2009 talking to my guides every day and really refined what my soul's purpose was. And one way I understand my soul's purpose is to create a college of light workers who will then go out and, in their own way, help other people to heal and to awaken.
And Guthrie, if we have listeners and they hear the word guide, and we might, I don't want to lose anybody at this point. Can you also translate that in kind of layperson's language?
Yeah. So guides are like spiritual guides, and they can be internal or external. Um, Actually, you don't even need to believe them because I can help you find your purpose by just helping teaching you how to connect to your intuition. So, but many people that I work with, it could be angels, it could be religious figures like Jesus or Buddha, it could be God or spirit or source, but we can connect uh, to these beings, these energies, and get direct information about why we're here. And
And
I
on
did
another
that.
level, I just go on another level, it can also be connecting with intuition, connecting with the voices inside of us, just so this is
Yes, your
inclusive for
own
absolutely everyone.
your inner wisdom. Yeah. The thing I wanted, so a number of these offerings are related to IFS. And here's the thing, the way I teach IFS. I teach what I call classic IFS, which is what the IFS Institute teaches, what I learned from Dick Schwartz. I spent many years with him. And then I also teach, and you guys will like this, what I call evolving IFS. So classic IFS is in my language, a bottom-up approach. It's a constraint release approach. We start at the bottom of the mountain and we meet and heal part by part as we move up the mountain. The evolving IFS approach is we helicopter in and we land on top of the mountain. We go directly to self and then we deal with the parts. And so that's the top-down approach. And we use both. So the one thing I want all practitioners to take away from my courses is to know when they have access to self and when they're actually blended with a part, even if it's a self-like part. Because when we have access to self, that's where the magic happens. And that really is is how the healing begins to unfold. When, as you guys know, when we have access to self, just a homeopathic dose of self, our self, we become more coherent. We begin to refine our frequency. Our system harmonizes, and the person we're working with, their system also wants to harmonize. It begins to attune to our system, which actually helps our system to harmonize at an even higher level, which brings them to a higher level. And the rest is just applying a few skills here and there, but that's the essence of what we're doing. I'm speaking,
Resonance.
I'm preaching to the
Oh, the choir loves it though.
choir.
Wow. I don't want, I know we've got another 10 minutes with Guthrie before you have to go. And I just, if there's anything else we want to touch so that my friends and our who we're sharing this with can get just a real flavor of how much I enjoy you, how much Ray and I enjoy our time with you. And it's just it's really nice to have a friend like Guthrie.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Ray.
Hey, amen to that. Yeah. I've got to get running, but I would say you've put me in a great space, and the client that I have coming is really going to appreciate the time that I just had with you. So really, thank you. Beautiful to spend time with you, and also, as always with you, Sid. Yeah, looking forward for more to come.
Yeah. Ray,
Yeah.
love and blessings.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
See you soon.
Oh, I I think I'd
Sid,
like to
one
highlight
one
something. Oh, go on.
one thing I would add is that if people want to find these programs, they can go to healing and awakening dot institute, and that's how they can find the programs or get in touch with me.
Perfect. I wanted to highlight a word you just shared, coherence,
Yeah.
because I really think that's a that some of the subtlety of my enjoyment of our time together is I do find such a coherence in the kind of the words and the vibration and the body and my friend Guthrie through all of these years of work and fine tuning that you've done. Coherence. Does that resonate? How does that resonate for you?
Oh, it's for me, it's a key word. Um, so Sid and I are both members of a community called POK. And the people who are in POK are, for the most part, people who have moved on to the continuum of awakening. And when I started going to POK meetings, I noticed my system would shift because I would be with a group of people whose collective field was vibrating at a higher level than if I were just walking around in the world. And that felt good to me. And that helped me to think a lot about coherence. And so one reason that every one of my classes begins with some variation on the four building blocks of presence is it makes the group field, because every group creates its own field, just as Sid has an energy field and I have an energy field and you have an energy field. A group has an energy field. And so I want to get that energy, the group field, more and more coherent. And that's why when we do demos in a group like that, amazing things can happen that would take multiple one-on-one sessions because the whole group is supporting everybody's access to self. And the group's actually amplifying everybody's access to self. And so we're in a virtuous cycle of increasing coherence. Don't you love this stuff?
I love this stuff, and you know what I love so much is how it just the way you and I in the last few years how it keeps expanding and opening,
Yeah.
and that it just it's like okay, what's the next chapter in this opening in this as we continue in our friendship and exploration. I do love this. Gosh, I think I would like to maybe move towards closure so you and I can have a few minutes before you run. And I just want to say it's just what a treat to get to explore in such a real way together and to get to include those who resonate with this message and with your sharing. It's a privilege to get to host you today and introducing you to our hopefully friends we have now and new friends. And any final thoughts you have, Guthrie?
Yeah, this is my final thought, that this would have been an entirely different experience if I had just come on and talked. But being with you and Ray, it raised my it raised the frequency of my vibration. So it was a collaborative effort. I mean, this would have been completely different with one person talking, but I think we increased each other's coherence. We amplified it.
And, and then the freshness of that, the freshness. But there
Yeah.
was no discussion about where we were going to go. We just stepped in together, and here we are.
Yeah, I had no clue how we were going to start.